Good evening. This is Dr. John Bennett with a late start from Miami. We had some technical issues, and everyone's been very patient. This is one of the series of Boston Medical TV. Tonight we have the pleasure of having a group of students from Tufts University, led by Rohan Jotwani. They're having more or less a hackathon, which I believe is a hackathon, but we'll get more information about that every January. And I don't know how long it's going on, but it's essentially they're joining together, crossing silos with businessmen, students, and web programmers to kind of come up with better solutions to healthcare problems. Also tonight with us is John Hewitt. He's a medical writer from Philadelphia. So I'm basically going to turn it over to Rohan and let him run it from here and introduce his fellow students. Good evening, Rohan, and thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you guys for troubleshooting with us for the last 30 minutes. Actually, why don't we go around and just introduce ourselves?
Okay.
Mahima and Paran, why don't you guys start?
Sure. So I'm Mahima. I'm a second-year med student at Tufts. I'm from Chicago, and I moved to Boston specifically for med school about a year and a half ago. It's nice to meet you all, or talk to you all, I should say, not me.
And I'm Paran. I'm also a second-year medical student. Came here from California. Still adjusting to the Boston weather, but it's been nice so far. I completed the MBA program a year and a half ago, and just focusing on medical school right now.
Welcome.
And last, I'm Rohan, so I, along with Mahima and Paran, run the Medstart program here at Tufts. We have a couple of other students who weren't able to make it here tonight, but they're with us in spirit. I also am a second-year medical student and part of the MD MBA program, which is basically we do med school and business school in 4 years. And we've been doing the Medstart program for the last 3 years. I think Paran, Mahima, and myself have only been involved for the last 2. But as Dr. Bennett, you said, it's basically our version of a hackathon that we host here at Tufts Medical School. And we call it an innovation challenge. We don't really call it a hackathon just because we found that physicians are scared of the word hack, or not scared, but they sort of think that hacking implies that there's a certain bright line of programming that you have to know how to do. And what we're here to do is we're here to dispel those myths and say anybody can be involved in the innovation culture that's happening here in Boston. And we like to bring that culture here to Tufts for one weekend.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So how long have you guys been? You've just been involved for 2 years, but it's been going on for 3 or 4 years?
It's been going on for about 3 years. And I think we've grown every single year. We started out with, I think, the first year there was like only 50 participants, and we're growing all the way up to probably about 150 participants this year.
Okay. So what were the, could you essentially outline how it works? I guess people apply to present, correct? Or apply to participate? How does it work?
So the way that we've modeled it is very similar to the way that other institutions like Hacking Medicine at MIT and Hacking Pediatrics have sort of modeled it, which is you don't need to show up to the event with a clear idea of what you want to do. You just have to show up with an enthusiasm to want to try new things. Now, obviously, there are lots of folks that do show up with different ideas, and we sort of have a theme every single year because we want to limit the overall scope of what the program tries to accomplish. We find it's better for us planning the event as well as for the individuals participating for the event because we can bring resources together that help people innovate within that sort of silo. And so basically the idea is we're looking for people with different backgrounds. It's never a good idea for us to have just all computer programmers and just, you know, a couple of other folks. We want to have it sort of be split across all different types of disciplines. So we invite everybody from programmers, medical students, practicing physicians, nurses, patients, entrepreneurs, who else? Designers. We even have a couple of engineers who show up every single year. And the idea is it's sort of a free-for-all of different ideas. So we'll never reject an idea because it sounds too crazy. We think that it's actually great to have everybody have the opportunity to come to the event and pitch something. And we'll find that a ton of people who came to the event within a couple of hours of being there actually developed many pitches, even if they hadn't thought of an idea when they walked into the room. It's just that kind of environment that we set up.
Okay, well, okay, how is it organized? How do you get the groups? I guess you must break it down into small groups, right? How does that work?
So that's sort of an organic process, and it happens solely based on who shows up at the event and the ideas that are pitched. And then people generally tend to find one another because they have common interests. And that makes it quite easy. So, yeah.
So it's not really organized. It's kind of like free-flowing type of thing.
We like to think of it as creative chaos.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what we do is we have sort of 150 people show up to one big room, and we have what's called a pitch fest, where different people will just go up there and they'll have 60 seconds to pitch a problem they're trying to solve. Not the solution. It's very important that the first round of pitching is problem-based pitching. So they'll go up there and they'll say, you know, I've been practicing in a primary care clinic for the last 30 years, and the biggest problem that I have is that I don't know how to communicate with my patients once they leave the doors of the clinic.
Okay.
And then what will happen is, you know, tons of people will go up there, pitch different ideas, and then we'll give them a good 30 to 45 minutes to just talk to each other. And you'll find that different people who are trying to solve similar problems sort of aggregate together. And, you know, we ask that the teams be diverse. You know, we ask that it's not just a team full of doctors, because it's quite hard to build products if, you know, you don't have a web designer or you don't have somebody who really understands intricate programming. And so different people from different disciplines will begin saying, hey, you know, I've worked on a similar problem to this. I think I could be of use to your team and stuff like that. And then after about 40 minutes of what we like to call congealing, we'll have another process of pitching where people will go up and then they'll start pitching actual ideas for things that they want to build. So the second round of pitching will go something like, hey, I came up and I told you about the problem that I have. Now we think we might have a solution that we're working towards. This is what we're trying to build. We're looking for 2 med students to help out, et cetera, et cetera. And then they'll get even more people to join their teams, and ultimately you'll end up with teams with around 4 to 7 people. That's sort of the magic number of people it takes to create a good team. And
go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Being an older physician, of course, we never had this kind of thing when I was in school and stuff. Is this kind of model? Is this a hackathon model? What you're talking about? Or are you guys kind of different from the other ones?
I think what differentiates us from the other hackathons is that we really try and open this up to everyone in our medical center. So, first of all, you know, hackathon cultures is something that's really growing throughout the United States. So initially it was something that happened in large companies like FedEx and Google, and a lot of products, even probably like things like Gmail, were actually developed out of hackathons. And then sort of smaller companies began realizing that they too could form out of hackathons, and you had a bunch of companies like Twitter coming out of different tiny hackathons in Silicon Valley. It's only recently, and especially here in Boston, that hackathons have become part of the hospital space. So you'll see, you know, places like Boston Children's doing hacking pediatrics. Brigham and Women's has their whole iHub. You know, Hacking Medicine and MIT does about 15 of these events every single year. What differentiates us is actually we're one of the only medical schools that actually hosts a hackathon. And so ours is really based around the idea of not only producing viable companies, solving real problems, and building cool products, it's also somewhat of an educational experience, because we find that a lot of the people who attend our hackathon have never done anything like this before. So it's usually like first-year medical students, second-year medical students, and even amongst the physicians, a lot of them are just interested in this space, but because we have such an open environment, we sort of like coax them to come and spend a weekend with us. And we find that it's really an introduction to the world of, you know, sort of computer programming for a lot of people.
You know,
as well as startup innovation.
You know, I didn't know what I was doing, but I essentially did the same thing for a conference on Google Glass and medicine in Indianapolis a couple of months ago. It was essentially people from all areas of medicine that use Google Glass, including Ned. You probably know Ned Sahan from Boston, and a couple other people from Boston. Jennifer Joe was there in video, and essentially we tried to do the same concept with doctors that use Google Glass. We were trying to get them together with engineers early Uh, so, because obviously, if you guys use Google Glass and you're a surgeon, you're going to have different kinds of input than if you're an internal medicine resident. You're going to have different things that you want to use the glass for. You're going to have little tweaks, little modifications, and I think that the hack concept is important there because you could talk to the engineer early rather than, you know, later. I think that kind of concept would work with as Google Glass evolves to find their particular, because it's going to be different for every niche how it's used. John, what do you say, John?
Hey, I'm just kind of listening here. Yeah, I've heard a lot about hackathons. They sound pretty neat. I'm wondering if you have sponsors show up, corporate guys with some money that look for ideas or possibly how to help out. And also, it sounds like you have a bunch of medical people looking for programmers to help solve some problems. Do you have programmers getting a chance to ask you guys questions, treat their bad back or supply some stimulants, as a give and take, that kind of thing?
Do you, how do you get the engineers and business people? I know it's easy to get the med students, but how do you attract other people other than medical people?
So we partner with a great organization called Hacking Medicine, and it's great because Boston offers such a great venue for engineers and mathematicians and computer programmers to actually all live in such closed space.
Right.
Simply because everyone's consolidated into such a. So with the help of MIT and their that we formed with them, we're able to publicize to a lot of engineers and programmers and tech folk. That helps us.
And it's extremely symbiotic relationship.
Definitely.
I mean, it's great to see that these are computer programmers that are very interested in making a change in healthcare, but just don't know the current issues that are facing healthcare professionals, and that's sort of what we provide. Like we have an idea as med students and as physicians of what are the most pertinent issues, and they provide sort of like the technique in order to help us, and it's a fantastic organization that we partnered with.
What, have you, in the last year, have any of these projects come off the ground, or have they reached the point of becoming a product or an application or something which is being used?
Yeah, so this is my favorite part of the discussion because we can actually talk about some of the successes that we've had.
Yeah, what happened?
So we've actually had a couple of companies come out of this that are going strong right now. The first is a company called Rubicon MD, which was an interesting story. It was a mentor. So we actually, one other big benefit of this program is not just the people coming together. We also bring together like renowned mentorships. So the top physicians, both at Tufts as well as throughout Boston, entrepreneurs, really well-known computer programmers all come together to help out teams with different ideas. And so the first year we had a situation where a physician entrepreneur came to the event and loved a team so much, he sort of made that his project as well. So he sort of fell in line with them, and they created a company called Rubicon MD, which is currently, sort of generating revenue and is growing quite a bit. Another company that came out of our first hack was a company called SQ, which is a platform to help colleges handle sexual health better. And so as you can see, it's diverse ideas that come out of it. I just found out 2 days ago that an entrepreneur who came to the event and actually was working on a team, but the idea sort of fizzled out, got together with folks or met a ton of folks at the event, and they met up a week after the event. And she actually helped found her co-founders for a company called Wellness, which is creating a marketplace to help people better buy products for cancer patients. And so it's really interesting because the impact isn't just what you build in the weekend, right? Like we'd like to think that we can solve healthcare in one weekend, but it's probably a bit hyperbolic to say that. The issues in healthcare are extremely complex and they require a lot of time to think about. So what we offer more than just building cool things and getting immersed into the process is also the ability to meet a ton of people who you can then work with after the event. And it's also, this sort of gateway of like finding out, oh, like these are the really cool people that I need to continue working with. And maybe the idea that you work on in the weekend isn't the one that ends up becoming your company, but you now have a base of people that you can continue to innovate with, and one idea maybe 3 or 4 months down the road has been hit. So we'd like to take credit for that stuff too.
Okay, well, might as well. Maybe you'll get a percentage.
That would be a great model. We should explore that model as a.
Well, yeah, the people that run the conference should definitely get a piece of the pie. Rohan. Well, I was going to say something about the theme this year is medical education, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What do? You kind of tell people, okay, try to think of an idea around medical education, or you just say, if you can, try to do something on medical education. Is that a rigid kind of thing? It's going to have to do with medical education, or is that kind of?
Yeah, so it's very important to us that this event is open to everyone. And so it will never be 100% you have to pick an idea in medical education or we won't even consider your application. That's just not the way we play.
Okay.
That's not the way we conceive of the event. But it is important for us, like I mentioned before, that we have people together who aren't so, like, trying to solve so many different problems that no one can come together and actually form a team. Right? Because if everyone's trying to do different things entirely, then it's kind of tough for us to envision a world where anything gets built over the weekend. We do need something that helps us find the right resources, mentors, and actually appeals to the right participants as well. And so this year we've chosen medical education as our theme. And we're right now in the process of partnering with a number of companies that are going to offer a lot of, I guess, insight into like things like their APIs, data sets, free versions of their products, so that people can actually have a base to build off of. And we'll, invite mentors who are renowned in the field of medical education to come and help teams out so they can understand the problems better, as well as we can align speakers that we have during the event to make sure that, when people are at the event, they can actually learn about the real issues that medical education is dealing with. But I'll also leave it to Mahima and Parent to say why we specifically picked medical education.
Oh, so you do have mentors and sponsors giving talks, giving about whatever. You have a lineup of speakers besides people talking about their projects.
We do. We have keynote speakers. So the event spans the entire weekend. It starts usually on Friday, sometimes Thursday evening, and it runs till Sunday. And on Sunday, all of the teams are able to pitch whatever they came up with over the course of the weekend to a panel of judges. And apart from the judges, we also have a set of keynote speakers who are either related to medical education or in some way, shape, or form, and they give short talks on their projects, on innovation, on whatever they feel like chatting with us about, which is usually really interesting and informative for everyone. So.
Do they take part in the organized chaos or kind of blending in with the people that have ideas, or is that kind of separate? They keep them separate from you crazy students.
Well, we do have mentors, and those are separate from the keynote speakers. Yeah. And the mentors aren't actually a part of teams per se. They're just there to advise the teams and consult with the teams and direct them in appropriate ways. So they don't participate in the chaos per se, but they're involved in the generation of ideas over the course of the weekend.
Okay, very good. Very good. John, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm just paying attention to the background here. It's all very interesting. I just want to wish everybody good luck with your projects. Yeah,
well, you guys, this is all new. I mean, this is new stuff to us old fogies because we had study groups when we were in school and that kind of thing, but nothing like it was a totally different scenario because we didn't have computers and we didn't have machines to help us do things like that. But it's certainly an interesting concept today, and I think any age can participate. You just need to bring your mind. But anyways, I really appreciate you guys. I'm not going to keep you up. I've kept you long enough. Thank you very much for the patience with the glitches. And Rohan, I'd like to have you back to talk about you and your almost doctor's history. Michael Banks has a lot of good things to say about you. He was on the he did a show about his doctor's channel and stuff. That's one busy guy. That must have been. Did you work in the office in New York, Rohan?
I did. I worked there right out of college for a gap year before I came to medical school. So
that's amazing. A company right in the middle of Manhattan, a medical company. That must have been quite an experience.
Yeah, the best ways to sort of describe the experience of working there was that it's not unsimilar because we have Mike and even my former bosses come to the event to mentor. And the way they describe the event is actually very similar to like a 24/7 hackathon because you have a bunch of different people who, quite frankly, in an old, more traditional setting would never be in the same room together. So you have physicians, journalists, developers, video editors, what have you, all working together to some goal. And we have certain rules there in the office that have also become part of our hackathon. So, for example, we don't believe in any jargon. That's number one. So it doesn't matter if you're like the chief of pediatrics here at Tufts, working on a team with like 2 med students. There's no jargon between anyone because in that case, the web developers have their own jargon, designers who are doing UX, UI have their own jargon, whatever. So we have like very similar rules to that. There's no hierarchy. So even at the doctor's channel, everyone's ideas, whether it's like the intern all the way up to the CEO, their ideas are just as valid as everyone else's. And the third idea is like you have to be willing to pivot, which is like fundamental to I think a lot of technology, but also the way we should be thinking about healthcare in general, which is we should incorporate more failure because when you go to a hackathon, you're actually inviting a lot of risk. There's a high percentage, just like in the startup world, that your idea will fail. And even when we're pitching ideas for videos, a lot of the videos that we produce, when we're first thinking about them, are bad ideas for videos. The question is, how quickly can you get through all your bad iterations to get to the right version? Right. And so, everything that I loved about working there for the summer is something that we're all trying to create here for the weekend. And so I personally love the sort of the longitudinal relationship between those two things, that I get to have that experience, but then also bring some of that experience here to Tufts.
I didn't ask Michael specifically about that, and we're talking about Michael Banks, doctor in New York that runs Doctor Channel, but I didn't ask him specifically about the scenario, what the office was like, but I could just imagine when I see the output of the website with the videos, and I know what it's like to make videos, to get the sound, to get the scheduling, the production, like just in this small little dog and pony show I'm doing now, the production and the promotion. There's a lot of things that go on there. It's not just strictly, medical knowledge. It's, a lot of other stuff, like you said, a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah. The coolest part about the event is, both working at the Doctor's Channel and also our hack, is that at the end of the weekend, you'll find that like there are physicians who are completely immersed into the world of making apps that they're talking about APIs and SDKs. And you'll find that the programmers are talking about clinical care like they've been doing it their entire lives. The learning curve in these places are huge, and we just like to say to anybody who would want to apply to the event that it's as much about obviously creating something awesome and meeting new people, but there's a huge educational component to it as well. I know I wouldn't be the med student I currently am without that experience, and so we'd love to just share that world with everyone.
Well, I didn't even know about Almost Doctors until I talked to him. And certainly when I found out about him, I was very, very curious. But anyways, the door is open, Rohan, and the other students, if you guys want to have a hangout to publicize or to talk about something else, the doors are always open. And hopefully the door will open a little bit better than this time.
Thank you.
So, okay, you guys, you have a good night, and it's a pleasure meeting you all.
You too. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Good night.